All right, back in the saddle here. Chad Brendel, Tim Adams, BearcatJournal.com, and final home game of the year. I don't know if I remember a season where the home slate ended this early.
It is early, isn't it? Usually it seems like we have
two road games to end.
Yeah, a game in December, real close to December.
I think part of that too is the mentally adjusting to the conference championship game.
Well, yeah, and also scheduling it on that first week, because I think last year UC did play on that first Saturday in December.
Yeah, so now that's the AAC championship game, which unfortunately we're not going to be a part of this year. Maybe next year.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen this time around, but it feels kind of weird. The basketball season starts Friday night, and then football done at home on November 14th. But Tulsa coming to town, and a team really that's not all that different than Cincinnati at this point in the season.
Tulsa, you're talking?
Yeah.
I think while their record's the same, they're 5-4. I don't think they played. They did play Oklahoma in their out-of-conference schedule.
Played them pretty tight.
Yeah, they're a team with a good quarterback. Throws the ball well. They've got a representative running game. In fact, last year or the other day, Saturday, they ran the ball extremely well. Defensively, though, I think is where these two teams differ. I know the Bearcats keep getting a lot of heat from our fans, but I don't know. I guess I'm not seeing the same thing they're seeing.
Right.
Because I see a defense that has improved immensely.
I think it's just a natural reaction now that they struggled last year. They didn't get off to the hottest start this year, so it's just the default, it's got to be the defense's fault.
Yeah, except that it isn't.
Except it hasn't been.
Yeah, it's you go against the top 5 offense of Houston, and basically if they weren't put in the short field or the offense giving up points, and the short field was by the special teams, they probably only gave up 2 touchdowns in that game against a team that's been racking up about 5.
Right.
Actually, I think there are 4 AAC teams that are all averaging 500 yards of offense a game, them being one of them. So I thought the defense played well, especially when you look at all the youth. Your 2 starting cornerbacks at the beginning of the year are done. One of your starting safeties is no longer a starter, replaced by a redshirt freshman. You've got, out of your 6 defensive ends, 4 of them are either a true freshman or redshirt freshman. You just did an interview with Bryce Jenkinson, who's a freshman starting at middle linebacker, and you got a sophomore and Jalen Miner behind him. It's just a lot of youth, a lot of inexperience. And, people say, well, you look at the Houston defense, look at all the juniors and seniors. Well, in a year or two, that's what the Bearcats are going to have. And these kids, I think, have played much, much better all the way around, really.
The funny thing is, you always talk about, when you're watching a practice or, going through especially something like training camp, trust your eyes. Both of our eyes told us at training camp that Jenkinson and Miner were maybe the 2 best linebackers, or the 2 guys that most look like college linebackers out there.
Middle linebackers.
Yeah. And sure enough, have 3/4 of the way through the season, they've elevated their way to the top of the depth chart.
They have it. I would say, though, in training camp we didn't know that because Miner was hurt most of training camp.
Yeah, but when he was out there, you could tell.
He's a horse.
Yeah, he just looked the part. He looked like a kid that could step in and play.
And that was another guy. You had Clemente Cassius, who thought he would be the middle linebacker and come into this thing. There was a lot of, I thought, depth there. And I still think there is. Antonio Kennard's a guy that hasn't been able to get on the field very much. But I think with a year under his belt, and we see that happen, both in basketball and I think in
second year,
the second year with a JUCO kid, that he has to make that transition. And so I think they're going to be solid. Like I said, Silverberry, Mulan, and Kevin Brown are the only really seniors on their 2 deep depth chart. So I think the
Leviticus Payne's not a senior.
Oh yeah, Payne. That's right.
I was going to say, feels like he's been around for a long time too.
But I really think they're looking to get a bigger player at that role.
Well, he plays bigger.
Size, yeah.
Ask Greg Ward on that keeper that he had that Leviticus came in and blew him up. How big he thought he was, but.
Right. So it's a young group, and I think they've been just a whole lot better. But I think the offense has put them in some difficult spots, and the special teams have put them in some difficult spots. And
that's just crazy to think, Tim. We're sitting here in November and looking back on this season, and the defense has been better than expected, and the offense. The yards are there, but. Yeah. They've struggled to take care of the football. They've struggled in the red zone at times.
We both those things. Yeah.
Who would have thought that we'd be looking at this thing saying, man, if the offense just could have got it together, this could have been a great season.
Yeah.
That's the last, if you would have went down the list, if I would have went down the list with you in August, and said we're going to be looking back in November and going, man, if the offense just had it all together, we'd have been in good shape.
Yeah, and I really thought that the special teams would be better this year, and that they've made small improvement in some areas, but they've made a lot of big plays that have hurt.
Yes.
Or that have helped, big plays for the other team that have hurt the cause. So I think the defense, if you ask me of the three sides of the ball, I think maybe they've been the most consistent of the three.
They've made the fewest mistakes.
Yeah.
I think you could say that. Now, maybe you'd like to see some more turnovers from that group.
And they've had to overcome more injuries.
Yeah, they've had to. I wouldn't disagree with you. I mean, I think you look at the offense and then you look at the yards, and it's been a prolific offense. But like we said, turnovers and
getting touchdowns
instead of field goals have been the problems.
Or pick sixes or turnovers. You had the big turnover, fumble in the end zone, which was another huge play in the Houston game. So
I'm still perturbed by you miss a guy that moved 3 times. You miss the false start call. You make a complete phantom face mask call, when in reality, Greg Ward Jr. had Pinckney's face mask, a whole handful of it, just shaking him like that. And you missed 3 calls on 1 play, and yeah, maybe you can say that you've got to keep your cool there. I wouldn't have kept my cool there. To have all that go on in front of me, I'd have lost my flipping mind.
It was a critical play.
I was out at a restaurant and lost my flipping mind watching it happen.
Yeah, it was a critical play. And, I know a lot of fans say, enough of the excuses and all those things, but in close ball games, those kinds of things, and we've seen it in other games, like Miami, Florida beating Duke at the end of the game.
Yep.
Michigan State and Nebraska this past week. It just seems like officiating has become very difficult. I know we being Cincinnati fans focus on the AAC, but I don't think it's selective
it's everywhere all over the country that it's been an issue. But back to Tulsa, we've kind of glossed over that a little bit. I don't want to sell them short, because I definitely think that that's a team that's good enough. If Cincinnati continues to repeatedly shoot themselves in the foot, they could be looking at another conference loss.
Can't turn the ball over, and you got to have your special teams have to be solid. If not great for you, just don't make big plays for the other team. And I think that this Tulsa defense is not nearly as good as Cincinnati's. They've actually got the top tackler in the conference.
But they're giving up 500
they're giving up a lot of yards.
A
They've gotten some turnovers. They've gotten, I think, 16 turnovers, so it's been good in that. But their safety actually leads the entire league with 11.1 tackles a game.
That's not a great thing.
No, you don't really.
When the last line of defense is making all the plays.
Usually your linebacker, I think, Kid Roberts for Houston is number 2, right behind him. And then Eric Wilson's right in there too, either 3 or 4.
Yeah, the kid from Temple, Ninkavich, isn't.
He's up there, but he's not. He wasn't in the top 3 last time I looked.
Seems like when you watch them play, he is at the ball every play.
The thing about him is he's not just a tackler; he's a playmaker.
Yeah.
He gets interceptions, he gets sacks, he forces fumbles, he recovers fumbles. He's just a big playmaker.
All right, so let's get down to it. Senior day. Obviously going to be an emotional one with a couple important guys to this program moving on. How do you think the Bearcats do? What's your prediction and your play, as Bix would say?
Yeah, I think he's mad at me. But
did you guys have a fight?
Yeah, he was texting me at the end of the game, and it was too similar to some of the other things I've been dealing with.
He needed a steam room?
Yeah, I just said good night. That's all I did, say good night.
That wasn't good enough. He wasn't done yelling at you yet.
No, he wanted more. But I would definitely think Cincinnati last home game has something to prove and wants to get bowl eligible. I think this league's going to have 7 teams bowl eligible, and I think Tulsa's going to be bowl eligible. They played Tulane the last game, and I think they'll win that one. Tulane's been awful lately, so I think Cincinnati wins. I think they're going to score some points, but I think Cincinnati's going to win, by at least 2. I guess I would say 2 touchdowns.
I think I'm in the same vicinity. 10 to 14 points is kind of what I was thinking. I do think that offense will give UC's defense a little bit of problem, not to the point where they're going to run all over them, but they'll be able to move the ball a little bit. Looking like the weather is supposed to be pretty nice on Saturday, so cross our fingers for that. And it just looking at Cincinnati's offense against that Tulsa defense, you have to think there's going to be a lot of yards, a lot of Bearcats running in the open field.
Well, and they were my pick at the beginning of the year as the most improved team, and Connecticut was my worst team, although they've been very improved.
Yeah,
too.
they've been a lot better.
But I don't think they're going to be bowl eligible. They're 5-5, and they have 2 tough games left. I think they've got Temple and maybe one of the really good record teams. But to Tulsa, to be, after the last 2 years, they've had 5 combined wins, and to be 5-4 right now, they're right on the verge.
You know, I for the longest time, I've tried to be nice to this conference, but after the way that I've seen these officials treat the Bearcats to the point you almost say, screw this league.
It's been frustrating.
It's been very frustrating, and to feel like they kind of get singled out almost because they've made it known that, you know, they'd be okay being elsewhere. It's annoying, I think, more than anything. I think a lot of it too is, you know, we're in position, we see these kids, how hard they work, the time they put in, and then you go out there and you have the situation that, like the Memphis fumble that was overturned, that was clearly a fumble, and then you have, I mean, the kid, the left tackle flinched 3 times, and they don't call it. Houston, all their players thought it was a false start. If you see them, Greg Wart's just kind of standing there with the ball like, you guys going to throw a flag, blow the whistle? What the hell's going on here? And just the way that unfolded, you feel like, I don't want to say cheated because I don't want to go that route, but it just doesn't feel right for me.
Yeah, with replay these days, trying to make fewer mistakes happen.
They're making more.
Yeah, and you know, the Duke game, of course, it was the last play of the game, but they took 9 minutes to get that wrong.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm like everybody else, I guess. It's been, of my 12 years of being involved at these recruiting websites, this has easily been the most difficult year for me, just managing the message boards and so forth. And it's just been very trying.
If things don't go well Saturday, I'm gonna start a Fire Tim Adams thread.
You would get some hits on that. You would get some contributors for sure on that.
Are you gonna blacklist me if I do?
No. I can't complain about anybody wanting to fire me. In fact, I might even get in there and say,
Well,
get rid of the SOB.
Here's the problem. You have to fire yourself.
Yeah, that is a little. I'm willing to do it, though. I'm willing to do it.
All right, that's going to wrap it up. Chad Brendel, Tim Adams, we both have the Bearcats over the Golden Hurricane of Tulsa coming up on Saturday. Senior Day at Nippert Stadium. Don't forget, Friday night, basketball debut, and then back again on Sunday afternoon. So a very busy weekend on campus with basketball Friday. It's good form. Football Saturday, and then basketball again on Sunday. He's Tim Adams. I'm Chad Brendel, BearcatJournal.com.